So welcome, Terry. Today we've got Terry Lynch. We're going to learn a little bit about the short universe in mining. Very excited to have you here. So welcome.
Dennis, great to be here. Good to see you again.
Yeah, likewise. And so I guess, it's been, we were just talking before sort of kicking things off, and it's slow, man. There's not much going on. Axes are to the grindstone vis-a-vis all the explorers. There's tons happening there, but not a lot in the market. Are mining stocks just not worth owning anymore? Like, what do you think it is? Why is this so quiet?
It's
notwithstanding the cyclicity in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously the summer doldrum thing that happens, 5 summers out of 6 type of thing. But I mean, there hasn't been a really spectacular, other than say maybe Patriot, which was, I think a lot of guys made some life-changing money on that one. There hasn't been those really compelling stories that went from 10 cents to $10 and, guys changed their life and they told their neighbors and, the fever, that used to happen in the space all the time, or rather routinely, hasn't been happening that much lately anymore, for lots of reasons. But in terms of, I know because we're out there and talking to people and we show people the TSXV index and it's basically at the bottom pretty much.
All-time lows.
All-time lows. So and then you look at, like we're in the battery metal space, but, $60 billion being invested to build battery plants in North America, Eastern United States, Canada, Quebec in the last, number of 6 months. Shovel ready, things are turning. So it's like there's a massive disconnect, right? I mean, the real world needs the materials and is building plants to consume materials, but they're not financing the guys who make the materials.
Yeah, even policymakers are being active in trying to, cut the red tape or at least be supportive for it.
You really can't, we often poke fun at the government and give them a hard time, but I got to say on the critical mineral space, they've done fantastic stuff.
Very supportive. Yeah, I agree.
You can't criticize them. They've done, I think, as much as they can do, really, which is like in Quebec, where Power Nickel is at, we can do half, like 2-for-1 exploration, and now they're going to, provide basically up to 55% tax credits to build the mines.
So there's a shortage of capital.
There's a shortage of the other capital, the equity capital. I was at a critical mineral forum maybe a month ago, and one of the questions was, what's the most critical mineral? I said, cash, because unfortunately where the project, where Canada's broken is you can still get like, the first round of exploration cash for an idea, like, because usually that's a couple of $3 million or whatever. And you got an idea, a geological idea, and you test it. And let's say it works. The theory was good. Well, you're not going to find the mine in the first 2 or 3 million unless it's some like miracle.
Agree.
You're gonna get some great insight and maybe a really great couple of holes, but some promise. Your theory's working out, and obviously, and where Canada used to be great was the follow up. So in other words, stocks would go up. You get all the guys that sort of ventured, got a bit of a reward, and then it would often double down and reinvest. That part is broken. I don't know if it's broken irretrievably, but it's broken for sure, and that's the challenge for Canadian mining.
Now, you run a program called Save Canadian Mining.
I do.
Why don't we talk about that? Let's talk a little bit about what is Save Canadian Mining and why does Canadian mining need to be saved?
Yeah, so we believe this funding gap that's happening where you basically can't follow up good exploration results with successive financings at higher rates, which is what basically could create a solid mining market, is because of what we call naked shorting. Mm-hmm. And so it's not short selling. So short selling would be, hey, I take the other side of the bet and I borrow the stock and I believe that, Terry's a goof and is going to run the thing to the ground. I bet against him. That's a completely legitimate trade. We're not against that. What we're against is this naked short selling where they don't disclose that they've borrowed the stock. They don't mark it as a short trade. They sell the stock. Market doesn't understand where even the stock is coming from. And stocks go down and people say, hey, what's wrong with that stock? The stock's going down. Selling begets selling. So what happens, we did a study where we basically hired a serious statistical research firm, Muir & Built, to do a study. And we said, okay, the tick test was taken out in 2012.
What's the tick test?
So the tick test was basically a concept that was in stock exchanges all over the world from the very first moment of a stock exchange. So when you think about why were stock exchanges invented, because I think it's an important principle, they were invented for two reasons fundamentally. One, to allow investors, whether they be private or institutional, to have access to a broader portfolio of projects. And the second reason was they were invented to allow companies to have broader access to capital. Those were the two primary reasons. Not invented to make exchanges profitable, not invented to make hedge funds profitable. Mm-hmm. And yet I think we've lost track of that. So now what happens, flash forward where we're at, that every exchange in the world in 2012 changed the rules. There used to be a rule that you could only short a stock if it was going up. Now, why would they have such a rule? They had such a rule to basically protect that theory of you're putting stocks on stock exchanges to access capital. Mm-hmm. So you want to basically support those companies. If the stock is a bad idea and it's going up, that's so short into that. Okay, if it's going down, you don't have to jump on it. It's going to keep on going down, but let's not drive it down because maybe it'll find its own right level. So when they took out that tick test, because that was the tick test was if it's going up, the tick up, you can short it. If it's going down and tick down, you couldn't short it. Mm-hmm. So that got thrown out in 2012.
That's on the daily, price movement. So if it opened at $9.50, if at the end of the day it's up 10 cents,
you can short it.
You're allowed to short it.
Yep.
And was there a limit on how much you could short it? Could you
short as much as you want?
So you could short it below. You could drive it below, hypothetically, even the opening price.
No, you couldn't short it below 950 because then you stop. Right.
Then it would fail the tick test, and that would be it.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Right. So it was good enough to last for 150 years. So since then, just this fact alone will blow you away. We did a study, and basically historically the TSX Metals and Mining Index used to trade at or above the commodity price indexes. So if you took like a benchmark of 70-30 precious metal and base metal index, the TSX Metals and Mining Index would trade at or slightly above, which makes sense. It's a commodity business. You're going to trade in line with the commodities. Where do you think we're at today?
I don't know.
35%. Wow. So stocks that almost have to triple to get back to historical norms. Not talking, power nickel, my little nano cap, micro nickel.
Sure.
I'm talking
the entire
sector.
Yeah.
It's down a lot. It's down a lot. Now, is there other reasons? Yeah, they've gone into ETFs, and maybe that changes things a little bit. But there's still a massive problem, and I believe the problem is this unrelenting short selling that basically doesn't do anything for anyone but make exchanges money, makes brokers money, and it makes hedge funds money, who are basically, and those hedge funds, to the most part, are operating offshore, not paying taxes. Instead, they're crushing real companies who are hiring real people who do pay real taxes. And why are we doing this?
So what would be the excuse that would be, like, what would your opposition say to protect said removal of tick? What was the case being made for the expunging of this mechanic?
So the theory, because I remember when it was brought around, I was one of the only guys that objected to it when it was first brought out. Mm-hmm. And I remember speaking to the people that were touting this was the greatest thing since sliced bread. They said it's going to be improved liquidity. Okay, so you're going to get much more liquidity, and it's going to drive down transaction costs. So there'll be less friction for instead of paying 3% brokerage fees, you'll be paying 1% or whatever. This will be driven down through the volume, and so that's the theory.
Hang on a second.
Yeah,
so let's park there.
Okay.
So in terms of brokerage fees were higher. They were, let's say, 3%.
Yep.
Was this because brokers were more critical in finding a home for a seller's stock? Was that to sort of subvert the whole tick issue?
No. So I think brokerage fees were higher because they had to do more work to sell the stock to people individually.
Right.
It wasn't just like responding like a guy ordering online. He was actually spending some time with the client, educating him on the pluses and minuses. And obviously he could only do so many at a time, so that there had to be higher fees, more touch. It'd have to get more compensation. So if you look at brokers now, since then, generally speaking, since they've driven down the brokerage fees, you will reduce brokerage fees, But now brokers don't make any money. Now they're selling their leads like Robin Hood. You know, they're basically in bed with the short players because they're generating commission. So it's created a lot of bad behavior. So it's like, careful what you wish for. Yeah, you got reduced commission fees, but now you got massively reduced stock prices, and you're overall less wealthy.
Okay, so we've got the uptick rule or the downtick, the tick rule. Let's call it. That makes a lot of sense to me. That makes a ton of sense. Like, I can understand why we want to protect that. I do, to some degree, understand that there would be more friction without it, and that, you know, it could slow things down a bit, which wouldn't maybe all be all that bad in terms of volatility,
Yep.
you know, et cetera. So what else? Why?
Well, other things that could be interesting to be helpful, you know, we participated in this task force, the Ontario Task Force on modernization of the securities industry in Ontario. And, you know, as Save Canadian Mining, we made a presentation and certain things we supported, et cetera. They came back with a bunch of recommendations, some of them very good. Well, amongst the ones, they didn't endorse a tick test, you know, and, you know, for reasons we can get into, but one of the things they recommended was going to a T+2+4 system, and now they're moving to T+1, but they haven't moved to T+4. Right now in Ontario,
What does that mean?
T+2. So transaction day, T, +2 means in 2 days I have to pay for my stock or I have to deliver my stock.
Yeah.
Okay. And the +10 is, oh, I forgot to deliver my stock. I forgot to send my check in. I've got as much as 10 days. Okay.
So we're talking a 10-day window of naked short.
Okay.
Theoretically.
That's the legal window. Okay.
Yeah.
And trust me, these guys routinely roll through that and they get months, you know, it's insane. You know,
So this is where you could actually short sell something and not have to not actually have to.
Yeah. And people say, oh, you know, that doesn't really happen. And like,
right. Naked shorting is supposed to be illegal.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a great lawyer in the States, litigator. His name is Wes Christian. And he's pretty much the leading short litigator. I did a podcast with him, a great guy. He's the advisor to Wall Street Bets, you know. So, but he's won, I think now, like 11 lawsuits of more than 8 figures, between 8 and 9 figures, suing the very big guys, the Goldman Sachs, the Merrill Lynches, the Wedbushes, all these guys. And all of these.
So these are the banks enabling the shorts?
And just recently, like within the last 2 months, Goldman Sachs paid a $3 million fine. Okay, get this, for mismarking 60 million transactions. 60 million transactions.
Shit.
So like, I mean, it's mind blowing. Like, so how much money did they make in that? God knows. But
it could be Berkshire Hathaway stock for all we know. Right? It could be
my guess is they made a lot more than $3 million. They probably made $300 million or $3 billion.
Right.
And you know, I just recently we met with another, you know, big mining guy, John Chisholm, who's a great, you know, mining investor. Premier Nickel's one of his deals, and he's done many deals. And we met with the Ontario Ministry of Finance and the people in that office. And you know, it was actually just after this Goldman Sachs thing, and we explained this whole shorting problem. And I think they're, you know, they've generally been supportive, but they still haven't done enough, and they need to get off their butt and do it, and hopefully they will. But you know, I said to them, I said, guys, you know, the challenge is if you stop these guys tomorrow, like overnight, it would probably crack the system, and ultimately the governments are then responsible because banks will fail. A pile of stuff could happen that would be very bad for everyone, including the miners and every brokers. But you got to stop the bleeding. The bleeding is happening still. They're still letting the bleeding go on. So the best way to stop the bleeding, my own personal approach right now, is you need to say 6 months from now or 1 year from now, we're going to put in this naked short selling test that we're going to apply randomly. So you can't cherry pick, you can't play the system. We're going to pull out trades and transactions so that we get a 5-9 statistics. You can do the math on this. And if we find people naked short selling, we're going to charge them 10 times the profit they made, 10x. Okay, so if you're somebody on that 60 million transactions, if they made $300 million, you charge them $3 billion. They're going to do that exactly once, and that will be the end of that day. And they probably will, once you tell them that you got the teeth and you're going to do it, they probably change their behavior right away.
Now, if it's the entity actually, let's say in their defense, let's say it's like hedge fund X, Y, or Z, and they're taking a short position on company X, they may not know that it's naked. I mean, wouldn't that be on the institution that's lending them
No.
That's facilitating the trade? Let's say
if you're the account owner,
yeah,
and you make a transaction, it's your obligation. It's your obligation to deliver the stock.
right.
So when you make that trade, like in Australia, this is why the Aussies are kicking ass and taking names, relatively speaking, because over there, if you sell a stock, in 2 days you got to deliver it. If you don't deliver it, they buy you in right away. You know what they do over here?
What?
Well, the buy-in can only add another 10% to the stock. So it's above that, they don't have to buy you in, and they don't. Yeah, I mean it's ridiculous.
That's crazy. So did you make any headway with your pursuit to get change?
The honest answer is no. I mean, I'd like to blow smoke up your butt and tell you I've made a great progress, and it's been a wonderful experience.
How long have you been doing it for?
Almost 3 years now.
3 years, yeah.
I've just kept at it. I started at a frustration at PDAC. I was at PDAC, and as we are wont to do, Sunday morning, and there was nobody there, and it was 3 years ago, and I remember saying to the guys, you're talking to the other CEOs that are in the booth close to you, and I said, I know it's bad out there, but holy crap, this is unbelievable. And they said, well, do you know what? They're charging $20 to get in. I said, what do you mean they're charging $20 to get in? Because it used to be like we paid and nobody got in free. So PDAC, in their wisdom, non-wisdom, they decided to charge $20 to get in. Why? Because they had, people and they could get away with it. But wasn't the thing to do, and it just really pissed me off. And I thought to myself, well, there you go. Here are these guys, charging money to do stuff, and what are they actually doing? Are they actually working on anything that really matters for the mining sector? Like, are they actually working on capital access, which is like, without capital access, we can't find discoveries. Yeah, and we can't build mines, and everything's got to be focused on that. That's broken. Until we fix that, what else are you doing? And so that's when I started. I literally bought State Canadian Mining from my booth that day. And I thought, because I was thinking, actually, I guess in a way, I only had like very small percentage of my wealth in mining. And I was thinking, maybe I should just get out of this, and move on to other things that were being productive. But I thought, I should try and make a change here before I go, because it's like a great Canadian industry, and it really should be something we're proud of. And this should be like Canada right now should be rocking. We should be rocking. Yeah,
it really is up to the PDAC.
It really is
to do that. And where the hell are they? Or at least, trying to stimulate something. It's true. You don't see much. I mean, there's the D&O insurance, and there's the, the various things that they can maybe help facilitate to an extent. There's the conference itself, which feels like it's stroke in many ways, and it's really gone backwards pretty far. I mean, I wonder really how much money that they're pulling in.
They're pulling a ton of money. I understand they're sitting on like $40 million in cash.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So they got tons of cash. It's one of those organizations that, I think they do some good things, and I think they started off with a lot of great missions and stuff, but I think they've become a bit of a bureaucracy now.
It's just a conference and a bunch of people
like,
that are...
What the mission should be, how do we make mining more competitive, in Canada? You know what I mean? How do we get more mines going? And of course, to do that, you have to do the environmental stuff too, and you have to do the diversity stuff. All these things are important to having a successful mine in the 21st century. Rob McEwen's been doing some great work. I don't know if he's been following up on any of his stuff, but he's got some really forward-thinking stuff on what he's doing with this Argentinian project about getting a social license in the high Andes to build there. And I think that's sort of a great leap forward for mining, and we should be taking some leadership. So those are the things we can be doing. It could be exciting, and God knows we got tons of minerals that the world needs, and we got tons of competence in terms of putting these things together and getting it out. And there's lots of money here, and we do know how to deploy it, but we got to fix the system, and the system's plumbing is broken right now.
It's kind of funny that it's kind of funny that I think a lot of the best advocacy for the mining space in Canada is really on the backs of the people that have probably made, the individuals, let's say, that have made a lot of money, and they've taken it on upon themselves in a philanthropic way, which obviously there's tax, benefits to some of that stuff. But oftentimes, I mean, whether it's Eric or whether it's Rob McEwen or Peter Monk, you drive around Toronto, let's go to a hospital, and I beg you to find a heart wing or a cancer ward or a university economics department that's not funded or sponsored by some
100%,
mining guy.
I mean, and like Save Canadian Mining in and of itself is a pure there's no bureaucracy. There's nobody being paid. It's all been sort of driven by donations. Eric's been our biggest supporter. Eric Sprott,
for sure.
Yeah. But, Rob, Keith Neumeyer, Sean Rusin over at Cisco, and obviously ourselves, but many, we've got about, 30 guys, 30 companies that have all contributed what they could to try and, to move this forward. And
how do you go about moving it forward? Is it just you get airplane tickets and go and fly and pick up a hotel room and sit in front of, security commission types and try to explain this to them through lunchroom presentations, roll out the sandwiches, let's go? Or is this done through actual lobbyists and, how do you go about something like that?
Yeah. So we the first go around, we focused, we thought, well, if we're going to do something, we have to do it in Ontario first, because Ontario is the sort of the plumbing for the financial system in Canada.
Sure.
And if you can't get it sold here, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So you got to sell it here. So we started, whether that's the proper mindset, I don't know, but we thought if we could sell Ontario on the benefits of it, then we could sell the rest of the country. And so we had, I would say, fairly good response from the Ford government on this, and the wheels of government move very slowly.
So the provincial government does have oversight into regulatory.
So the Ontario Securities Commission is a provincial body, right? So
okay.
So we basically, we went to through a lobbyist. We basically raised the first wave of money was basically for marketing and for lobbyists. That's where we put the money in. And we basically, got kind of, because it was like, I don't know, I mean, I knew a few people there, but generally didn't know how to do it, or how to do it appropriately. So we met them, and they, they saw the wisdom in being helpful, and they basically supported us to go. They basically directed us to the OSC, and through the OSC to IROC to, get access to data so that we could actually support our position. Like, we did our own research, and IROC has always been of the view that their research says it's not a problem, which is complete crap. It's just not true.
But you got the raw data.
We did get the raw data, and their data showed it was a problem. And I believe their data is collected in a way that doesn't really show the severity of the problem, doesn't really get the information that we really want. That's a whole other thing. But we did. I had to, it was a great effort to get that data. And I'm not, throwing rocks at the people at IROC. Everyone's used to the status quo. And so it's easy to stick with it. And everyone says, "Oh, it's all good." No, it's not all good, man. It's all really bad. Mm-hmm. And there's you have to wonder in this environment where if you look at the Aussies and I think they're really taking over. Like if you look at almost any performing stock in the junior sector right now, it's got an Aussie relationship, because their access to capital is better.
Yeah,
and
they also have transparency rules too. Every single shareholder, it says you can look up if Denny owns Power Nickel stock and he starts blasting it out.
Yep,
it's me. Yep. I can't hide it through Anonymous or another brokerage.
Why shouldn't that be allowed? Right? I mean, and why do we have to have 12 exchanges or 20 exchanges, whatever the hell many exchanges we have right now? And most people, I would say, have no clue. They think that TSXV is still it's 100%, where we trade on TSXV, but that's about half of our volume, and it's just not transparent. It's not fair. As Eric said, I remember we did a podcast with Eric Sprott, and Eric said the individual investors aren't stupid. You kick them in the head a couple of times, they wake up. They realize, hey, this game's rigged. I'm not going to play. And unfortunately, we've kicked them in the head too many times. And that's why, despite there being a number, I really believe that, from my core, there's never been a better time to be an investor from a value proposition, that you can find some amazing values in the mining space, companies that will go 10, 20, 30, 50, 100x, okay? And very little downside right now. But the question will be, can they get financed along the way? And those individually, some will and some won't.
That's the downside.
That's the downside.
Yeah, because you can't find anything without money.
Yep.
And, we're in a treasure hunting business. I say this all the time. It's like, if you don't have the dough, you can't find things. So our job is to go raise money, try to find something so that we can go back and raise more money to try and find more until we either build it or we get sold.
Yeah, and we got to do it in a constructive way for our shareholders, because and one of the fair complaints about Canadian mining, junior mining, and nano cap mining, et cetera, has been these management teams get in place, and as long as they're raising money and getting their pay, the value creation is less of an issue. I own like 20% of my stock, or my family does. We put in, several $1 million over the last 6 months. It's real for me. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not a lifestyle business. And there are lifestyle companies out there, and, that's, you'll get some complaints.
Well, there's a ton of those in the pursuit of protecting shareholder and protecting against dilution that also fall into a lifestyle choice where they're like, well, I'm not going to go and spend the very few millions I have because it's an inappropriate time to raise money. I'm too cheap right now. And so I'll just pay my bills and pay my, my listing fees and my audit fees and me and my CFO and whoever else. And let's let this bleed on. Yeah. I don't think that's right either.
I don't think that's right either. I think my big thing is, you've got money to execute a vision that you sold to raise that money. Go and execute that.
Hell
vision.
yeah.
That's your job.
Yeah. If I put money into a company, I don't want them keeping it. I want them spending it on the property. And if that stock goes down,
that's life.
That's life. And if it goes sideways,
that's life.
That's life too. And if it goes up, awesome. But go get me more.
Yeah.
Let's keep it going.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in that. I mean, it sucks that what we're talking about is a climate that's awfully discouraging. And I kind of want to come back into this tick rule and all of this for a sec. And you said the N+1 or whatever it is, day +1, T+1, T+2, and so on. So I guess let me just I guess my computer's still broken upstairs here, right? On trying to piece this all together. If I go to my bank and I ask for a short on Power Nickel, right? Mm-hmm. So I say, okay, I want a short Power Nickel right now. I've got my margin account ready to rock. They're going, okay, Danny, who's going to give me a borrow on Power Nickel? Who's going to give me a borrow on any of this stuff?
Yeah, you know what? I don't know. You know what? I wouldn't think it would be easy. So what happens is, and people say that, well, I've looked at your short report, and there's only like 200,000 or 300,000 shares, or whatever.
Right.
Nothing. And those are the legitimate shorters, which I have no problem with, because they borrowed the stock, they took a legitimate bet for whatever reason, and God bless those guys. They'll win or they'll lose. That's fine. That's not the problem. And the market would have you believe that the TSXV short listing is what's out there short, and that's complete BS. Okay?
Right.
And I would say probably 20% of these stocks are short. And people say you're crazy. I'm saying
like 20% of the aggregate volume or daily volume of the float. Okay, yeah.
Wes Christian says 30%, and he knows more about it than any man alive. That's the guy who's won, 20
to 30% is short. Mm-hmm. So when we see these things go up, how come we don't see the covers?
You know why? Because they keep manufacturing the paper. This is like the printing press. And this is, for example, we're trying something new. I mean, we've gone as companies to the regulators, and we've harped at IROC, and we've harped at the OSC, and we've talked to the governments, and we've done podcasts.
So similar to the paper gold versus physical thing.
Yeah.
Where you just end up with more gold in circulation vis-a-vis paper than actually there is in physical form.
Right. So
Similar sort of thing. There's more shares in circulation than what's being reported as the total shares outstanding.
and you're seeing this somewhat play out in real time right now with AMC.
Yeah.
Continuing to squeeze these guys, but the system continues to try and create paper out of vapor and to obstruct them. There's no question that those giant hedge funds are offside. They got caught in their own game. They should pay the price. They should die. They should get wiped out, because that's what happens in capital markets. That's healthy. You know what I mean? And so, but
that's what should happen, not just in capitalism.
100%. We shouldn't be bailing out these guys.
Yeah.
Anybody, banks or whatever, have to have this hard medicine. But that's another rabbit hole.
It's another rabbit hole. But
we can leave that.
No,
but for example, we're doing something different. We identified that there's a new approach. There's a company called in the States called Share Intel, and free promo from them. I'm a paying customer. What they do is they've come up with a way to audit your company stock on trading days. So their recommendation is you do it over 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And what you're looking for, they can only see about 70% of the stocks. About 30% of the stock goes through what's called direct market access, and they can't get a window on that for whatever reason. Technically, I don't quite understand it, but that's what I understand. And that's really where most of the shenanigans go on. We can pick that up later. But on the 70%, they can get a window, and they can sort of see, XYZ bank, and they can see if there's what they call a positive trade balance or a negative trade balance. And what they're looking for is significant and consistent negative trade balances. Because what that means is that if you look over a period of 8 weeks, and let's say, hey, Bank B has 1 million shares of Power Nickel short or negative trade imbalance, pardon my vernacular, but that's really what it means, is that there's a negative trade imbalance for 1 million shares. And then you say, well, how is that possible? What's your explanation for that? You don't have the borrow, there's no short report on it that says that that's viable. So we've this is sort of a relatively new technique, maybe, a couple of years old. And we've hired them, done them, and done the reports. And then what they recommend you do after that is you basically send out letters to the compliance department of those banks. And you say, hey, Mr. Compliance Department, I'm sure you're probably unaware of this. Nod, nod, wink, wink. But now you are. Here's the evidence, because this is actually stuff that's gone to court and it's been bona fide and accepted. So this is from,
this isn't snake oil. This is actually a letter that has some.
This is from, TSXV, from Broadridge, from CDS. This is material, factual information. Nobody's denying that. Okay, it's gone to court and been accepted.
Yep.
So several times. So it goes to the compliance, and we say, Mr. Compliance guy, can you explain this?
Mm-hmm.
Now, so far for us, they have not responded, but we understand that's not unusual. So we'll soon be sending them a second letter. But what's important is we've basically put these guys in notice is that, look, this is causing harm to my company, my shareholders. Before we sent you this letter, you didn't maybe know about it. Okay, so you could say, we didn't know, blah, blah, blah. Ignorance is no defense, but nonetheless, it's a defense. Now that you can't be ignorant anymore. You knew, we told you to fix it. You continue to let this go. You're continuing to basically act in a malfeasant way.
Yeah, it's like negligence.
It preserves our legal rights to possibly sue these guys. Now, do I want to sue banks? Now, sounds like a very bad business idea. And they got a lot more money than me. But we're hoping they'll do the right thing. And over time, I think they will do the right thing. That's what we've given to understand. So we have to be the squeaky wheel and jam them a few times. And hopefully they do the right thing. But from what we understand from talking to Share Intel, who's done a lot of this stuff and knows it, better than most, this is their business, the core business. They basically, say this is the tip of the iceberg. So whatever you're seeing on the 70% is X, and then the 30% is like several times X. So that's tactic one. Tactic two is, we announced for our company, Power Nickel, that we're doing a spinoff. We're spinning off. We have a core nickel development project which we're advancing in Quebec, but we have some great copper gold assets, and we're spinning them off But we're doing it in a private company initially. Why are we doing that? Well, because you can't paper over a private company. So there's going to be a significant dividend that our shareholders are going to want to get. And what we expect, what we think, is that there's certain people who own Power Nickel stock. It's been in their account for months, and they think they've got that stock there. But what they got really is a digital IOU. They don't have a DRS. So they're only people that get the dividend and the people that got the DRS. So you can be, and we're going to communicate with all of our shareholders and all of the people. Because obviously you would do that through your offering circular. We're going to say, make sure you've got your DRS, because that's who is going to get this reward, this thing that you already own that you're justified in getting. And if you don't have it, then raise hell, because you've already owned the thing for several months. Why is it not there? So that we'll see. That's theoretically another.
That's
tactic.
a really interesting approach. Yeah, it's kind of saying, hey, shit, like here's some dividend that all shareholders are going to get. And
that's material. That's important. That's valuable.
Sure, that's valuable, and it has to add. It has to tally up exactly with what's out there.
Yep. Now we hope that triggers these guys to do the right thing, cover and provide the thing. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's just how ridiculous is it that we have to go through these hoops. Yeah. Isn't that insane? Like I'm spending money with Share Intel, spending money on these reorgs, and doing this stuff. And all I really want to do is
drill some goddamn holes.
Yeah. Be productive with our exploration program, build Canada's first carbon neutral nickel mine, in NISC, and hopefully find some gold and copper and the other stuff. But get rewarded or not rewarded based upon the merits of our exploration success. That's what made Canada the leading mining country in the world. And we can be there again, but we got to fix the plumbing.
Right. And worldwide, I mean, Canada has an awful lot going for it vis-a-vis projects within the nation, but a lot of companies worldwide, a lot of projects worldwide, internationally are listed on as part of Canadian juniors and Canadian market, right? That's a very important financial function to the mining space, is to aggregate a lot of this stuff worldwide.
Yeah, 100%. But my thesis is that, I think we're losing ground as attractive. I think Aussies are getting more listings than us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It seems like
to me, because of the rules in Australia, and they're not perfect down there, don't get me wrong, there's still things wrong there, but they're better than here, and it's much easier they're at least forcing these guys to cover, you know what I mean? And the transparency stuff is there. And they're right now, I say their junior market is much healthier. And these guys here, they just are living in denial that this is not their fault somehow.
My thinking with this is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my thinking with this is that this is like death by a thousand cuts. I think that this market, for what you're saying, in the truth in what you're saying with the short interest, the uptick rule, etc. I think the abusers of this are many through really high frequency trading,
Spoofing.
small, like really small trades, like the, Newfound Gold goes from, 650 to 660 today. And then it gets beat back down and whatever it may be, right? Some little thing like that.
Yeah.
And they're in and they're out and they're in and they're out and they're in and they're out. And it's just happening so fast. No, of course, you're not going to have the reconciliation of those little microtransactions going on and be able to tally that up on a daily, like.
But that's why, for example,
real time
with Share Intel, they do it over 8 weeks. They're looking for persistent, consistent. So it's like, at any given day, you get that. But for example, we our stock got closed at 15.59 by the same broker 7 days in a row down. Okay, if I closed the stock up 7 days in a row, they'd be hauling Terry off to the Huska Hotel. They would be taking me away.
Sure.
And I mean, how does that happen? And that's not just me. The same firm does it for 30-40% of the stocks out there, including Newfoundland Gold.
Yeah.
So it's pervasive and it's destructive, and it's not about price discovery.
But don't you think if what I'm saying is true, and if the fix would prevent what I'm saying to continue, like vis-a-vis uptick rule vis-a-vis stopping all of this altogether. Let's just say, let's extrapolate it that far forward. You know, what does the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan do with their money? Like how,
hopefully they'd invest a lot of it in mining because they could make a lot of money.
You would think so. Well, yeah, sure. But I mean, you would think that a lot of these big funds, a lot of these hedge funds, a lot of these, big entities, do they have branches of them that participate in this type of high frequency trading and stuff that would also similarly be smacked if you went after, for all the right reasons, some of these rules? Would you catch some? I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether to call it nefarious or just So it's a behavior that's going on in the market. So, like there's algos.
One of the things we're looking at, one of the things we're talking about is at a senior level, government wise, is there a national security issue here?
Mm-hmm.
And because actually most of these naked shorters, the big ones, are offshore and controlled by entities currently not particularly friendly with the West.
Mm.
And what they're doing is destroying our capital markets, which is making it impossible for us to advance our critical minerals projects forward, to provide the decarbonization things that we objectively want to do. So this is one of the things we're exploring as, hey, we've heard that maybe this is another angle in to changing these bloody rules, to waking people the hell up. And so we're exploring that as an organization as to, hey, maybe that's another slant on this, is we got to figure out another way. Currently our current approach hasn't delivered the goods. So it's like,
right.
You got to try a different approach, right? And see if there's something. So we're trying different on the micro level by finding, hey, maybe individual companies can figure out ways to beat the system. And maybe if it works for us, then we can share that with our brothers and we can all beat the system that way, and then, collectively, if the system would wake up and realize, hey, I think honestly that if they would actually just say, we're going to have a whopping big penalty if you guys do this, and we're going to catch you. We're going to figure out a way over in a year that all this stuff is going to come in, and we're going to catch you, and the guys are going to get rewarded for catching you, so they're going to be hunting for you. Then scare the crap out of them, say it's going to be 10 times, and then because they're going to need a year to unwind their positions here and not get blown
not shock
out.
this.
Yeah. Because I mean, as much as I'd like to kill these guys, and these guys deserve to be executed, these hedge funds that have made massive illegal profits, in my view, and they deserve to get wiped out and lose all their money. I'm also big enough to realize that, hey, I don't want to destroy the system to do it. Because capitalism does work. We just got right now we're obstructed by some of the rules, and we should try and fix those and heal the system. But boy, we got to do something to stop the bleeding, because the carcass has not got a lot of blood left. Look at this TSXV index 600, man, and it's like, have you ever seen a more global, environmentally positive time for mining from a theoretically, global
it's amazing. It's amazing. And then even on top of that, you got the ESG. I had Jerry Butts on last week. I was talking to him with, the Trudeau government, the kind of push for ESG, all that kind of fun stuff. And the reality is, and even Chad Williams a couple of weeks ago, we were talking, and it's just crazy. Like Newmont Mining has an ESG score of like 86. Tesla has an ESG score of like 36.
Yeah.
Why is that? You may ask.
Crazy.
And it's like, well, it's obvious. We do flora fauna studies. We have to. You like we've had to a long time before 100%, it was cool. 100%. We had to do it before it was cool.
Yeah. And Canadian mining has to take its recipes the world over. It doesn't matter if we're going to Africa, we have to apply Canadian standards.
Right. Well, this is it. Jerry's like, oh, in Canada. And I said, no, not in Canada, everywhere in the world. And like we do it. And he said, well, not everywhere. And I said, pretty much everywhere.
Yeah. Because
the companies are listed here.
And directors are responsible.
Right. And if it's not between us and Australia,
yep,
that's like the entire, and in London,
yep,
that's like literally the entire world. That's probably
95% of all
$2.5 trillion of publicly listed mining companies.
Yep.
So if not two, let's say two, maybe, and then we'll give some to China,
yep,
right?
Yep.
But like the reality is, it's a big number. And they all have to adhere to those standards. And so, no, mining isn't a bad actor.
No.
You know, there's mining in the world that gives us a bad name.
The cobalt in Congo.
For instance, right. Or you wouldn't go
the
to
nickel
Ghana.
in Indonesia, you know, those types of things.
There's illegal mining that happens all over the
Exactly,
place in these, especially these third world or developing countries, let's say. And over there, of course, you've got, you know, a group of people that don't own the claims, and they go in and they, you know, pour mercury in the rivers and suck it all up. And, you know, like they got kids dying in the, you know, this crazy stuff. And sure, you can't, you know, blockchain that material. It ends up finding its way into the market somewhere, whether it's some wholesale purchaser of ore or of concentrates or of refined metal. I mean, you know, got it. There is metal in the supply chain that comes from those places, but that's not the mining industry.
Yes.
Right? The actual, you know, the actual institutionalized or the actual official, you know, corporations and entities that are going about their business. It's an interesting problem, but to your point, I mean, wow, what better times? What a better tailwind. You've got, you know, net zero goals and aspirations, which will require, like, I forget the statistics. It's like 60 times more this and 70 times more that. And,
more than we can ever find.
More than we could ever find, and more than we could ever put into production with the timelines in front of us. And so, yeah, absolutely. There's not, like, from a fundamental perspective, there's no better time to be owning or getting into this the space, and everything's at a fire sale price.
Totally.
I just, you know, I don't know. I agree with you. I think this, you know, being able to take on that policy, I think it's kind of weird because it may, again, you'll know way more about this than I, but it feels like this would be an appendage of government. As you said, like the Ontario Securities Commission. Doug would be at the helm of this, and then you'd say, okay, well, look, at some juncture, like, who reports to who? Is this some division of the bureaucracy that doesn't really have an elected official or fall under the
So the chairman of the OSC is an appointed provincial official.
Is that an elected person?
No, an appointed official.
Appointed person by the premier?
Premier, yeah.
Okay,
or the cabinet, or however that works.
Got it. Okay, so there is influence. There's direct ability to influence this appendage of things. Yeah. And then that official, would he have the power, or she? Would they have the power to say,
yeah, I mean,
like, let's study this and make a solution?
And then, of course, the Minister of Finance, you know, develops, you know, legislative policies that are written into law in Ontario as part of the Ontario Securities Act is a provincial act. Okay. So the Ontario Securities Commission oversees that, you know, as a regulatory body.
So what about the federal?
So federally, they're out, right? Securities is a
entirely provincial.
Yeah. The national security angle is an angle that you can get to the feds, and that's what we're talking about.
Got it.
Okay, but basically, the Ontario Securities or Quebec Securities, BC Securities, Alberta Securities, they're all provincial organizations with provincial agendas to basically foster, you know, economic activity in their provinces based upon the securities, you know, laws which enable banking, equity, etc.
So if the federal branch were to somehow intervene, even on that premise, would they have to open up another division, like an oversight division to oversee the provinces?
I'm not sure. I mean, on national security, they had pretty wide powers,
right?
So they could do some. I'm sure they could do some things.
There could be some influence.
Yep. You know, like AML and stuff like that is sort of like in a way the anti-terrorism stuff. I'm sure that was all driven by the feds, and I'm sure they could, you know, do something along those lines. But the easy pathway forward really is, you know, if the provincial premiers as a group will, you know, understand they can create a lot more dynamic business opportunities in their province if they actually free up capitalism by fixing the plumbing. Forget what the banks are saying. The banks are a big bureaucracy, and they're making money right now hand over fist, including the way that things are. So they're going to fight to keep the things the way they are because they're making money. Okay, and they're myopic in my view. Okay, but you know we need them. But the premiers, the leadership of our provinces should know that, hey, we need to have small business is the engine that is going to employ the most Canadians. It's going to make the most difference in creating wealth. And small businesses eventually become big businesses. A Cisco was a mining shell. It became a very big mining company. There's a recent example of a really productive use of capital all the way through. That was what made Canadian mining great. Those things could happen, and they will happen again. But we got to empower those guys to do that. So you got to fix that plumbing. That can create so much wealth for us as a country, create so many jobs. And 10% of all mining jobs are Aboriginal jobs. We're trying to really create great Aboriginal relationships. I think philosophically, all Canadians are beside and are for that. But they need to work close to their where they're at, high-paying jobs. Well, we could do that, but they're one of the biggest guys impacted. And we want to build bridges with these folks. And
I want to get some First Nations reps on here and talk to them, because I think it would be fascinating, first of all. And I don't think we're hearing their concerns and their messages. I mean, every election we hear the rhetoric, right? Boil water advisories and holy fuck, can we figure out how to boil some goddamn water at these places?
It's just unbelievable.
Or whatever, clean the water in these places. Like, it's been how many years, how many elections? Like, enough's enough, guys. I don't care who's doing it. It's like, if that's a thing, I wouldn't be shocked to have somebody sitting here going, what do you mean fucking clean water? We don't need that. We need some goddamn jobs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just hearing a completely different perspective.
Yeah.
No, I'd be fascinated to have some First Nations chiefs and people that are really, facing a struggle with, the life as it is right now in Canada for them and their tribe. Come onto this podcast, reach out to us. I'd love to have you on and talk to you. Same goes for PDAC. You brought that up. Now I'm listening to you talk about this and all of this, and I'm going, where the hell's PDAC? So I'd love to have whoever's in charge over there come in and talk about what the hell PDAC's doing to help us.
Well, make the call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
I'd like to listen.
Yeah. Like, that's another good one, right?
It seems like it's a perfectly positioned organization to really be doing all the things that we're doing, in a proactive way. The only reason why we came into being was they weren't doing it.
They weren't doing it. So you had to make your own little mini PDAC.
Yeah. Sort of
Holy
pounding the
shit.
drum, but it's a thankless job.
Yeah. So, you're juggling that with, you've got a day job too. You're working on, you've got your own project. Let's talk about that for a few minutes. So Power Nickel, what's going on? What pushed you into the nickel world?
You know what? Basically, we were in Chile, and we sort of saw the writing on the wall there with the riots and whatnot. And we thought, okay, things are getting dicey down here. No longer maybe safe to deploy new capital. Hopefully, things will work out. But we just didn't see it. So we looked around and we had acquired a great gold exploration play, gold copper in the Golden Triangle. We thought that was going to be the thing, and then I had done some work with Critical Elements, which is a really great lithium producer or lithium play. I think it's my biggest lithium holding in basically the same area, James Bay area. And I noticed, somebody brought to attention that they had this nickel asset on their books, and so we basically, I talked to JS and I said, JS, look, this nickel thing looks like it's possibly a mine here. You can't be a small lithium guy and be a lithium nickel guy. So you got to get rid of it. Somebody, why not me? And we need to reposition ourselves. So anyway, friends, we made a deal that was constructive for Critical and the best deal they could get at the time. And it was a great deal for us. So we bought an option to buy 80% of it for $5 million in spending and 20% of the company at the time and $500,000 in cash or whatever. So then, we went out and it had 3.1 million tons of about 1.6% nickel EQ, which was a good start, and had done it with very little.
That's great grade.
And very little drilling.
How much of that is nickel?
1% nickel.
1% nickel. The rest is what PGM?
PGM's about a gram and a half, and copper about 0.55, cobalt about 0.07. So had great bones, and then we modeled it out and drilled it out, and boom. First 8 holes, 7 of the 8 hit, and all of a sudden we confirmed that historical resource, had posted a resource of 4 million tons at that grade, and then that was last August, and then in one of these, because nickel has not exactly been the hottest commodity in the planet for many years, was one of the first nickel 43-101s out. We are Ontario-based, Quebec project. We are BC reporting issuer. So as it turns out, in September we had to pull that 43101 because it was we used a 10-year-old metallurgical number. When you do nickel, you have to have a metallurgical, and I guess BC has a law that says if it's more than 10 years old, you can't use it. So, okay, fine, but we knew that was there, and of course we were planning to do metallurgical anyway, and we've got one, and it'll be done. XPS, the leader in the field, will be producing it, and we'll have it by the end of August. We started to drill in September of last year and drilled until April, 13,000 meters or so, and had some amazing success. We had first hole was 40 meters of 1.6% nickel, top 5 hole nickel last year anywhere in the world. Followed that up with 10 meters of almost 3%, 16 meters of 1.6, 14 meters of 1.5. The hits kept on coming.
Yeah.
So we
and it's all hanging together nice.
All hanging together. Yeah. So it's in about a 1 square kilometer area.
Okay.
We call it Nisk Main, and so now we've drilled probably 85% of that up, and we'll post a 43101 on that end of September, God willing, and we think we'll be between 8 to 10 million tons is our guess. Okay. 100,000 contained tons of nickel. That will make it commercial, and then we did a step.
What would be the arithmetic average of your grade? Let's say
1.5%.
1.5 roughly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we did a step out from our Nisk Main. We went 5.5 kilometers northeast, and there was an ultramafic sequence all the way up there, and we saw this one expression at surface. Smart that my geological team, kudos to them. They GeoVector, who was executing it for us, they saw it and they said, "Hey Terry, it's a winter target. If we don't drill it now, we can't drill it for a year. We like the looks of it. What do you think? Should we throw a hole in there?" I'm thinking, okay, that's as you said about the money. We got it to spend it. So
stab one in it.
So stab one in it, and lo and behold, 60 meters, we hit 8 meters of 1 ounce PGMs.
Wow.
Which is like, wow.
Holy shit.
That's like a bonanza hole.
Yeah.
And that happens when that's 5 kilometers out there and you hit this big expression, and we're thinking, holy crap, this could be big. That's like Norilsk, that's.
So how big?
5 kilometers out.
5 kilometers out.
8 meters of 1 ounce PGMs.
Right, but so are we talking about one big layered intrusive sweep?
So we don't know. So we think they're all connected. We think it's the same movement that created all this activity.
Sure.
Okay. And so generally speaking, with these nickel PGM projects, like if you look at Norilsk or Jinzhuang, the big ones, they have mini pods or mini pearls that they burp up to this, at various levels. And so collectively,
so you'd have like this mother, let's say, stock, and then you'd have these little burpy little bits.
So we think that we'll end up with multiple pods here, and so we're doing a cool new technique. I don't know, have you heard about ambient noise?
Yeah,
isn't that cool? So this
passive seismic stuff.
Yeah. So we're using it there now. It's being deployed. It's as of last week, and so we obviously did the airborne EM between. Just east of our main deposit, all the way up to the big platinum hit, and that was very exciting. Lots of good results there. And now we're using this ambient noise to sort of in between, because what the ambient noise does is it goes over like your known deposit, and basically correlates. It sends a sound wave down 2,000 meters, comes back as a sound map, and then basically you correlate that sound map to your known scientific data. So, for example, where we had that 40-meter hole of 1.6% nickel, that's going to reflect to be a certain sound map.
Yeah, you're going to fingerprint
and the 10-meter at 3% is going to be sound map. So we'll start, and then we can say to the algorithm, hey, where are more of these sound maps? Because it's obviously vertically, it's going to go 2,000 meters, and now we'll take it laterally up 7 kilometers. So I suspect we're going to find a lot of this stuff.
And, a lot of it probably didn't even come to surface, but
that's the thing.
Right?
Yeah. And is it stacked? We're basically at around 200 meters now. Is there another one at 500 meters? Is there another one at 700 meters? A lot of times that's stacked. So it's got, I'm super excited about it. I think it's got the best bones of any nickel play in the planet. It's by far the cheapest, high grade nickel sulfide exploration play in the world. Not even close. We're trading at 5 to 20% of our peer group values, and we've got lots of great actions happening, and soon
how much cash do you have?
We just raised $4.8 million over the last in May and March.
Okay, so just before it got a little nuts.
Got a little nuts.
Shitty, yeah.
Yeah, and then The next money that comes in will be strategic. We're about to do a strategic deal.
Okay.
So because we got somebody that believes this is going to be a mine and they're going to pay for a full feasibility on NISC as an investor.
Crazy.
And that'll be cool because, our stock blows right now. It's awful, but it's going to change because these guys are paying up, and then we think that once the world sees that somebody other than Mad Terry believes this is going to be a nickel mine, and then obviously the 43-101 comes out and gives the actual official credence of it, then I think things will hopefully.
Where's the hair on it, Terry? Like, is it in the middle of nowhere or something?
So,
like, what's the deal?
That's the beautiful thing. This thing is ridiculous. You drive off a route north to our site.
Mhm.
Across the road is a Hydro-Quebec substation. We're 8 kilometers outside of Nemaska where there's a regional airport. Never seen a better site in my life to build a nickel mine or any other mine. It's crazy.
Really?
So the hair in this deal, I don't know. The hair in this deal is that,
These goddamn shorts.
goddamn shorters. But I think they're about every dog has his day.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
And I think
And it's 25 million market cap now.
25 million market cap right now.
Wow. Have you looked at the comps of what, let's say, a 40 million ton thing? I mean, maybe we're off to the races on the first 10 here, but what's a 40 million ton at that grade?
Is that billion? That's
is that a
Boise
multi-billion?
Bay. That was
Yeah,
Boise
right.
Bay.
That's
Yeah.
where I'm going. Yeah.
So I mean, the peers are sort of trading 100 million to 600 million in that range.
on a 10 million tonnage
it's
basis.
sort of and they have various tonnage that can go from sort of like 11 to 17.
I'm thinking like Talon.
Yeah,
What was Talon?
So Talon's 400 million for the project. Okay?
Right.
So if you see us going 8 to 10, and they're at like right now, I think 13. The grade's a little bit better north.
How much tonnage there?
13.
13 million.
Yeah. So maybe we're 70% of the tonnage right now, and 70% of the grade or 80% of the grade.
And they're trading 400 million right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's tough, right? It's tough because you want to bring in a strategic that's going to maybe help you, goes through feasibility. But then we saw what the fuck happened on that Talon. That was crazy. I mean, it took them a lot of work to unwind all the clause that were into that, between RCF and Rio Tinto.
Yeah,
and,
the good news.
it was kind of a snarly mess.
What we are doing here is just a straight equity. It'll be less than 10%. So it's like,
is there a royalty out on it?
No royalty, no offtake,
Wow,
no
you want to
first
sell
rights.
one to me? No, I'm just
No.
kidding.
I do have a royalty for sale though.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
well, let's talk about that
okay.
after.
Yeah. So
Crazy.
Yeah, no. So we're super bullish on it, and Godspeed. We'll have some more drilling success this fall, and eventually we'll find our our fair position. I think we'll be literally Canada's next nickel mine.
Good for you guys. That's super exciting. It's and I like a good nickel PGM story. Look at like FNX. You think of some really exciting ones that have happened in the past. And one of the things I think a lot of people don't recognize with nickel and base metal in general is that when we look at a win in gold, let's say we have a big win in gold, it's like $1 billion or a couple $1 billion, something like this. Nickel's a whole nother bag of tricks, man.
Yep.
Like it's a whole other universe of value.
Yep.
Like you find a mine, it's it's not hard.
You're gonna get paid.
Yeah, it could be 3, 4, 5 billion. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like there's some mega things out there.
Yep.
So it's kind of like copper, right? In that way. I mean, it's not every project doesn't obviously work out to be that way,
Yep.
but if you find a big one, man, they're worth a fortune.
Yep.
So there's a lot of money to be made. So that's super cool.
Yeah, no, we're stoked. So we'll just keep on working hard.
Keep working hard. Keep drilling. Keep drilling it.
Yep.
If people don't get impressed by those drill holes, then just hit them over the head with more drill holes.
That's all you can do. Eventually you'll weaken the resistance. But I know we've been talking in the last while to more resource funds, and they're like, "What did you hit?" They're
crazy.
honestly surprised that we've done so much and gotten such great grades and such great results. And it's like, hey, man, this thing's real.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll soon see.
Super cool. Okay, well, thanks, Terry. Thanks for everything. I really wish you the best. I wish everything the best with the Save Canadian Mining Program and all of what you're up against. I mean, obviously, thank you on behalf of everybody in this industry. That you're out there fighting for, our interests on this, and I think it's a very noble and commendable thing to be doing. And everyone needs something like that, like a hole in the head in terms of a headache. But so thank you for doing that. Yeah. And good luck with the project and the drilling.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having us on, and we appreciate you talking about the issue. And hopefully, we can, just by getting the knowledge out there, we can get more fans and more support, so that we can hopefully make a difference.
Is there a website anybody can go to?
Yeah, you can go to savecanadianmining.com, and
Okay.
you can sign up there, and we communicate regularly with our folks. And we've been quiet a little bit lately, but because we needed to try some new tactics, and we're trying them, and then we'll hopefully have some success and can share them with the team. Like, there's about 30 great Canadian mining companies, and I would say, guys, look at the people that are supporting Save Canadian Mining. Those are the mining companies that really believe in their stuff.
Yeah.
Because if you got crap mining deal, you're not out here wasting your money on Save Canadian Mining. You're on Save Canadian Mining because you know you're being killed. You know what I mean? So it's a great heads up of in my mind. 'Cause I've looked at them all.
Now that you've said that, though, you're definitely going to attract your fair share of.
Yeah, maybe so.
Okay. Well, anyway. All right. Thank you very much, Sherry.
Thanks again. Cheers.
Take care.
Bye.
Cheers.